Notre Dame may have come up short against Miami, but Marcus Freeman has shown that his teams know how to respond. But what needs to change for the Irish to bounce back against Texas A&M? The answer is coming up next.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome in. This is Locked On Irish, your daily Notre Dame podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Wojciak. I graduated from Notre Dame in 2018. Now I'm a producer at Fox Sports and have been covering the Irish for the past 5 years. Thank you for joining me here on Thursday, September 4th, and for making this your first watch or listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Just like there's more to every player, more dedication, more attention to detail, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Stay tuned later in the episode for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Before we dive in, please take a moment to subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. It helps us grow and helps you stay up to date with our daily coverage of Notre Dame football. And since tomorrow is our Friday mailbag, make sure to get those questions in. As always, you can drop them in the YouTube comments or hit me up on X at Locked On Irish or on Instagram at Locked On Irish Pod. On today's show, I'm talking with Tim O'Malley from Irish Illustrated, and we are doing a deep dive on where Notre Dame must improve after the loss to Miami. Think offensive and defensive lines, maybe some play calling, and how Marcus Freeman can reframe this season. Then we'll pivot to one of, if not the most critical game left on the schedule, Texas A&M. What has to change in short order for the Irish to bounce back strong? Let's unpack it right now. All right, I'm really excited to welcome back Tim O'Malley, Notre Dame beat writer for Irish Illustrated. Tim, as someone who's covered the sport for a long time and been a fan of it for even longer, how do you evaluate Notre Dame's loss to Miami, considering everything is still in front of them, but their performance definitely raised more questions than answers?
Yeah, I was just surprised that Miami looked exactly like I thought Notre Dame was going to look, and Notre Dame did not. We've come to expect Marcus Freeman's teams in that atmosphere to really answer the bell from the outset. I mean, I think Ohio State was just better than Notre Dame, but Notre Dame answered the bell in that championship game, and they fought back. In this game, they fought back. It took way too long, I thought, to find something on offense. I like to think it was adjustments on defense and maybe playing better on defense, more so in the second half than Miami shutting it down a little bit. If Miami did shut it down a little bit, they did it too early. So, because they have that much of a lead. But yeah, they played better in the second half. I wonder if you agree with me on this, and I wrote about it yesterday. At no point did I think Notre Dame was going to stop that final Miami drive. And at no point did I think Notre Dame was going to score or tie the game with 1:14 left. And that's a bad feeling, I think, when you're watching a game, especially the former. The defense, you felt like, all right, it's tied. Here we go. This is the chance. And it just didn't happen.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially after the Christian Gray PI. You're like, all right, that was the play that could not happen. Now, in that moment, it was smart for Gray to interfere on the play, or else it was a touchdown. But it's like, man, like when you have your corner like Christian Gray, who's had his ups and downs, like that could have been a moment for him to step up, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah, and he had played well, honestly, in that game. He had a few pass breakouts, but of course, it's bad to have a pass interference at that point in the game as well. He was not an issue for me in coverage during the day. There had a lot of issues, I thought. Soft coverage. I still don't think that first touchdown was all on Carson Hobbs. I assume Schuler squatted too much or something went wrong there in the communication. They didn't show it on TV, but man, it seemed like they showed it on the replay, but I was watching live, but I couldn't find it on the screen. Hobbs was really upset about something.
Yeah.
I could see him just being really upset that happened, but he had that look.
Trust me, I've seen some defensive backs get really upset at someone else for a mistake that is entirely on them. So it's hard to read too much into that.
That's true too. Yep.
But yeah, in that situation, it did look like things were a bit out of sorts in the back end. But something we have talked about before is how Marcus Freeman's teams have sometimes struggled handling success. Like obviously we saw it last year in the loss to Northern Illinois, but then they ran the table in the regular season and they didn't let their success get in the way of making it to the national championship. But after 7.5 months of riding the high from that playoff run, do you think Sunday's effort was a byproduct of not handling success well over the offseason, or was it just a bad night?
I think it was more a bad night. I mean, the pattern of not handling success is true. It's real. It happened from the beginning. I still feel like the Marshall loss, they didn't handle the success of a loss to Ohio State because everybody was telling them they're the best one-loss team in the country at that point. So it really has been a pattern. I didn't dig the game plan offensively. I understand getting CJ Carr going with the quick and easy passes. But you figure it was setting up some stuff downfield. My worry is, and we're going to talk a lot about it going forward, of course, my worry is that maybe the offensive line coach, Joe Rudolph, and Mike Denbrock and Marcus Freeman thought, we have to do this because I'm not sure we can protect him right. That worries me a little bit more than, let's stick with the bubble screens. Let's stick with all these screens. Actually, they would both worry me equally. I wouldn't want to stick with the bubble screens and screens. Were you bored for a half watching Notre Dame play offense? Because that's how I felt. I was bored watching them play.
I was bored, and at one point it felt like Denbrock was trolling because they just weren't giving it to Jeremiah Love. We're like, all right, at this point, he's doing it to mess with us because everyone was like, all right, this is the play. They're going to give it to him. And it didn't happen. And then they're like, all right, this is the one. And then it just never happened. So it was bored, frustrating. I was feeling a whole lot of emotions, but I think after rewatching it, some of it is on CJ Carr. Like there's some plays where it's pretty obvious RPO action, and he keeps it and he throws the ball instead of handing it to Jeremiah Love. So I understand that Denbrock is partially to blame because he's the one giving CJ Carr that option. But sometimes, man, especially earlier in the game, CJ Carr's just got to hand the ball off.
Yeah, it's Freeman brought it up post-game, and I thought he was really diplomatic post-game. I know people have a problem with how Freeman handled post-game, but I think I thought he handled it worse in the past when they lost games that he felt they should have won. So I think he was keeping everything in front of him. But it was shocking. Love didn't get the ball. It's almost as bad, not as bad, but almost as bad. The Jadarian Price only carried the ball on one series. I know he fumbled. He's still one of your best players. He really is one of your best.
Yeah, Malachi Fields fumbled.
Right, and he came back in and made 2 plays. Price didn't get the ball in another series. He carried 6 times on one series of the game, and he had his 45 yards for the team lead. He came back in. I truly believe he only came back in that 1 or 2 plays because Love got tired on a couple of plays where they were trying to feed him the ball. He got popped on the sideline, if you remember, running to the left. I really think Price was only in for that. So I was confused by that. It happened last year, too. I know you can't give both running backs the ball. If your number one's not getting the ball, it's hard to get your number 2 the ball. But I think they both need it more.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you guys hear in camp that Price may have struggled with some ball security issues?
I did not hear that, but I brought it up wondering on our podcast. So what it was Tim Priester brought it up. He's like, you got to get him back in. I said, I agree. 2 things. Maybe he was fumbling in August, and that's why they took him out. Also, if Carr doesn't dive on that and it goes back 99 yards, I don't think any of the reasonable people in the world are saying, well, you got to get Jadarian Price back in the game after he fumbled away 99 yards.
Or even if they just recover it at all. I mean, you think about it, Notre Dame had nothing going on offense. That would have just been super deflating in the moment. But I'm with you. You got to get him back in the game at some point because Jeremiah Love was looking pretty gassed at the end of that game, which is not something we're accustomed to seeing. But one thing Freeman's group does have a strong track record of is he responds well after losses. So I went back and looked it up. He has only lost back-to-back games within the same season 1 time. So I'm not counting this a back-to-back loss because it was a totally different team. But it was his first 2 games in 2022 against Ohio State and Marshall. Since then, his teams are 7-0 in the first game after a loss, winning by an average of 24 points, although I'll admit that number is a little bit skewed because they beat Purdue by 59, but it does include ranked wins over Duke and USC back in 2023. So how confident are you in his ability to get this team to bounce back at home against Texas A&M?
I would guarantee it if the offensive line played well in a loss to Miami, but it didn't, so I don't guarantee it. Texas A&M's defense, I know we talked on our podcast, Irish Illustrated Insider, Bryce mentioned that UT San Antonio had 200 yards rushing. That can be a concern for A&M. I also don't think A&M showed anything, nor, I feel like that might be fool's gold. Miami's defense played great. They played wildly, violently like Notre Dame usually does. They were totally confident. I think A&M's defense will play well, but it really is up to Notre Dame's offensive line. It's going to be so intriguing to see what they settle in on at right guard. I know people want Anthony Knapp excommunicated from left tackle right now. I don't think it'll happen this week. It might happen when Charles Jagisa comes back. I think you're probably settling in with a guy that started 15 games for you last year. Maybe you settle in at guard. Maybe not, though. Maybe Gerby Lambert and Sullivan Absher are better off playing 35 snaps apiece as opposed to putting one of them in there for 65 snaps or 70 snaps. So, it is the most important part of the next game, the offensive line.
Tim is going to be right back here with us in a moment to break down what Notre Dame has to do to improve in the trenches. But first, I want to tell you about one of our sponsors, Upside. Hey, Irish fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code FOOTBALL and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code FOOTBALL for a limited time 25 cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code FOOTBALL. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. Today's episode is presented by Mazda. This is Mazda's Moving the Game Forward, brought to you by those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. Because these moments do more than win, they push what's possible. They remind us to go that extra yard, shift into that extra gear, and keep moving the game forward. Even though Notre Dame ultimately came up short against the Miami Hurricanes in the season opener, the Irish fought their way back from a 14-point deficit in the second half. CJ Carr showed flashes of brilliance, like when he escaped the pressure and threw a no-look touchdown pass to Micah Gilbert. He also took it himself on a quarterback draw to tie the game in the fourth quarter. It wasn't the result we were all hoping for, but there are plenty of reasons to be excited about the future. That's what keeps fans and players alike moving forward, always chasing the next great moment. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. How do you judge Notre Dame's performance on both lines, especially considering Miami looks really strong on both of their fronts, and it could end up being the best offensive and defensive lines that Notre Dame ends up seeing all season?
Yeah, I guessed going in that Miami's offensive line was the best they would face over A&M. I think most people would say A&M's the best offensive line, but just a bit over Miami. Miami played like it, man. I'm not totally shocked they didn't get a lot of pressure with 4. I'm just totally shocked they didn't bring more guys to get pressure on Carson Beck. At some point, you got to dial it up, especially because Freeman said Tuesday before the game, he said, we got to get pressure with 4. If it's not 4, it's 5. If it's not 5, it's 6. He even said 7, which you've never seen. But I'm surprised they didn't dial it up. You got to trust that back end more. More concerned offensive line, the defensive line. I took a lot of heat the last week of the preseason for saying they have 5 rotational defensive tackles. They still right now have 5 rotational defensive tackles. Some of them played well. Some of them didn't. I don't think they're going to have an All-American defensive tackle. I don't think they're going to have an honorable mention All-American defensive tackle. But if they could all play the way Dawson and Rubio did, a little bit of Onye did, you got Heinisch playing better football than he played, he's going to have issues against huge offensive lines. I'm just surprised, Tyler, there wasn't the good of Donovan Heinisch mixed in with kind of getting washed out. Usually you're like, oh, gosh, you see him get shoved out of the way there against Penn State or Ohio State. But he shows up and makes a play, a tackle for a loss or something like that. It just wasn't there. So hopefully that unit can play better. I actually have more faith in the defensive line playing well against A&M than I do the offensive line playing well against A&M.
Why is that? Just based on what you saw against Miami, or does that have to do with the personnel on Texas A&M?
What I saw versus Miami. They looked so much slower. I know they were exhausted. I mean, the Emil Wagner thing was one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. He just stuck his arms out there at the end, like trying to direct traffic. Prescott, of course, had no chance, but Anthony Knapp was getting beaten too. The right guards had issues. I didn't think Craig was great. So that was Craig's first game back from ACL. I think people forgot that. Traore.
Yeah, I thought Craig was the best, but maybe it's like he looked good because everyone else
guys
was
around
so
him are
bad.
getting shoved around. Yeah. The depth is a concern until Joggis is back. Obviously, they got Will Black coming on. I'm sure he'll get a good look in this bye week too. So I don't think the rotational lineman was that big of a cut down. I just think those defensive tackles are rotational players. I think they'll be fine rotating. You need better from Heinisch. Hughes played like 3 snaps. So when I say 5, he probably needs a couple more. I would, I'm really concerned watching the offensive line play against A&M. I think Joe Rudolph gets it straight as the season progresses, but this is a quick fix, and missing Joggis does matter more than we all wanted to admit.
Yeah, and on Irish Illustrated Insider, you pointed out how much Notre Dame's offensive line struggled against Duke in the season opener in 2020. And I'm glad you brought that up because I also mentioned how they got dominated by Georgia in 2017. They ran for 55 yards. Now, granted, that's a really good Georgia defense there, but this Miami defensive line could end up being really good. And that 2017 unit ended up winning the Joe Moore Award. So how much patience do you have with this offensive line? Because they have this bye week. Like, do you expect a big change or marginal? And I understand that you're projecting a little bit, but they do have 2 full weeks to try to get things sorted out.
I think marginal will be, I think they'll stay the course a little bit more. I mean, the only guy that didn't play that would be even a feasible option would seem to be Will Black. And we haven't seen him play a college game. So we're just saying that because he's going to be good someday. I really believe, I know people are really mad he didn't train at left tackle during this August. I think they trained him at guard because they thought this is the position where we need the most help. Maybe he will win the job. Did Kirby Lambert look quick enough to play left tackle to you in that game? Because I know we're all projecting him there, but he didn't in that game. It was a difficult situation. I don't know if you'll see a single change in the starting lineup for Texas A&M. In fact, I would guess you will not see a single change in the starting lineup.
I would be pretty surprised if we saw anything. Like, what are you going to do? Like, what move is there until Jagasaw comes back that fixes the issues you saw on Sunday night?
No, probably nothing, because Will Black's speculation. I mean, they can't all play when they're true freshmen in their second game. Any better than, why would he play better? He could play better than Anthony Knapp played in that game, but think of the good things Anthony Knapp has done. That's a different situation as well. Would he play better than Anthony Knapp played against A&M last year?
Did you?
Probably not.
Did you catch it? I don't know if when you watch the game back, if you have the broadcast on, there was a moment during the game when Anthony Knapp had a ice pack on his neck, on his forehead, and he was eating a popsicle. Molly McGrath came in, and I was like, "That's not good. It's not a good sign when your left tackle is over there eating a popsicle because he's so out of breath, so hot, all of that." Do you think the humidity was a big factor? I don't know how I feel about that because I was at Texas A&M last year, and my buddy Luke and I were talking about this yesterday. Like, that game was super, super hot, and it didn't seem to faze Notre Dame at all.
I think it was a big factor because it seemed to face Notre Dame. I mean, everybody looked dead. They just looked dead out there. I will say, I didn't feel it going in. I wasn't playing a football game, but before that game started, before the rains came, so like 5 hours before the game, we were doing a pregame incident analysis from our hotel, and the rain started coming, and I looked at my app just to see the weather. The real feel before it started raining was 110. Then the rain came and it dropped the temperature of the real field to 77, but I think the humidity stayed up there the whole time. I know Mike Goolsby, who played linebacker for Notre Dame and played a lot of snaps, said people don't want to admit it, but the humidity is affecting Notre Dame. You can't look at the field and think it didn't affect Notre Dame.
It's true.
So it's just the way they looked dead. They really did. Of course, you can't say it affected Notre Dame when they came out the first series. So.
And a South Florida 110 is a little bit different than, say, a Vegas 110 where it's just
gross,
heat.
man.
It's disgusting, sticky. You feel miserable. So hopefully that's a big reason why Notre Dame struggled, or at least they were so fatigued on the offensive line, because, like, in theory, it's early September in South Bend, sure, but the game's going to be at night. The weather should be better for Notre Dame when they take on Texas A&M. Yeah,
well, think about this, though, too, to counterpoint what I'm saying. Like, Leonard Moore and Christian Gray played 71 and 70 snaps running up and down the field the whole game. They were fine. They didn't look worn out, and they had the most running of all. They get hit the least, too, but I'm saying that is not an easy task. And that was interesting that they went at Carson Hobbs and the nickel when Mark Zachary came, and I was positive we were getting it.
Oh, yeah.
On that one, but I was kind of excited for it, but we were told Zachary had more picks in camp than Tay Johnson did, so I was waiting to see that matchup.
Staying on the defense, do you think the lack of pass rush had more to do with Miami's protection or Chris Ash's scheme? Because something that's been really bothering me lately, and we've already talked about it a little bit, Marcus Freeman's emphasis on pressuring with 4. And look, I get it, right? You want to be able to pressure with 4 so then you can drop back 7 guys in coverage. Like, everyone understands why you want that. But correct me if I'm wrong, Al Golden never really emphasized that they have to get pressure with 4. He would bring anyone. He'd bring linebackers. Yes. Sometimes he'd bring 2 safeties, and it wouldn't work out. But he was never afraid to bring as many guys as necessary to rattle the quarterback. And it felt like a conscious decision by Chris Ash, Freeman, the entire defensive staff, to not do that. And I don't understand why, because it was not working in terms of getting pressure.
It was almost like they believed they'd get pressure with 4, and when they didn't, they just kept believing they would get pressure with 4. And Pete Sampson made a good point on our podcast. maybe on third down, you're looking to send KVA and Snead and Traore and Bryce Young and some combination of that if you're going with 4. I would still, no matter what, speed up Carson Beck. I know he is a veteran. He's poised. He made 2 really nice throws when he was pressured. But his numbers when he's pressured are so much worse than when he's not pressured.
Yeah, and I would argue the second touchdown was a bad decision, and he got bailed out.
Actually,
and he got pressured.
He got pressure. That was a hell of a catch. It was, I would have brought more. They probably felt they could get there, and they just didn't. But kudos to Miami either way, because this was a game, Tyler, where you were sitting there watching 2 sides of scrimmage, and I thought, God, they can't get to him. And then Notre Dame at the ball is like, man, they can't protect CJ Carr. And those are 2 horrible things to be going to in Congress.
You're not going to win a whole lot of games when that's happening. But let's talk about CJ Carr. What was your overall impression of his debut?
I really liked his bounce back effort, especially when they got him running. I want to get to that in a second about the running, but he was certainly hamstrung by the persistent game plan to throw horizontally because Miami was just all over it. It's not the type of defense you go horizontally against either, is it? Those guys could always been able to run, and they could certainly run on Sunday night. I was really disappointed. I was expecting a lot of CJ Carr taking some shots downfield. I know there was the 2 to Malachi Fields. The Raritan was a beautiful play. He should have scored, by the way, on that. Let me put it this way. Mitchell Evans scores.
I made the joke on Twitter. It looked like it was the first time Eli Raritan had ever ran with the football because at first he's running it. He's got it with one hand. He's carrying it like a loaf of bread. It looks like he looked at it. At one point, he's like, oh, he should tuck this. That was a weird play.
Yeah. But no, I was impressed with Carr's resilience. Hopefully we'll see CJ Carr throwing downfield more. He had no chance in the pocket on the last drive. Remember that was Styles Prescott's first ever college football appearance. Go block for CJ Carr and Reuben Bain and everybody else right here. And you have to, there was no chance. That was the Dante Vaughn moment in which much lower stakes. But yeah, Carr running, I felt like it was so necessary. It was troubling. Like, it was cool. It worked great. Mike Denbrock made a good adjustment to get CJ Carr running. I don't want CJ Carr running that much. He also has to learn to slide if he's going to run, because he is not Riley Leonard in terms of sturdily built. Now, he was quick like we hoped he would be, like we thought he would be, because he's an athlete. But it was almost like, well, this is working. But, man, if it wasn't working, they couldn't move the ball at all. And that's just not something you want from this offense, that CJ Carr has to run designed QB power or QB draws to get 7 yards.
Right. And I think it was Jamie Uyama who pointed out the one quarterback power they ran early on in the game. It might have been the first one on 3rd and 1 when Gerby Lambert just straight up missed a block. That was actually there. It was set up for a big play. All Gerby has to do is, I don't know, get in his way or at least, just slow him down for a second. Yeah. But yeah, I was surprised that they ran him as much as they did. It obviously worked in the quarterback draw, but he needs to go to the Ian Book school of diving/sliding, where he never was like giving himself up going backwards. Cause I actually think that's way more dangerous when you do like the baseball slide into second base, cause then you leave your head completely vulnerable and that's when guys can tee off on you. But Ian Book mastered that like forward barrel roll where he'd somehow get 2 or 3 yards. Like, it'd probably be infuriating if you're the defender, because it's like, look, I got to lay up on this guy, but he's able to dive. But man, that's a critical skill he has to learn, because there was one hit in that game where I'm like, dude, I don't know if he's getting up after that.
Yes, he got popped twice, and one was the old school NFL hit where you're like, oh man, was he going down? He still got hit, but he wasn't going down. He was just kind of not moving fast enough, really. And he's a quick runner, but I mean, defensive linebackers and safeties and corners of Miami are pretty quick too. They're going to come get you. The tuck and roll is the way to go. You're right. The slide, especially in college, where if you slide in the NFL, you're so protected, it's ridiculous. I feel like the college refs are like, oh no, he wasn't giving himself up yet. So the Book tuck and roll is good.
And I think in college too, there's so many quarterbacks who are run first that it's a little bit different than the NFL. I mean, Castellanos at Florida State, that dude's a running back. I think he threw it 9 times and they still smoked Alabama. Right. And you could say the same thing. I mean, Riley Leonard never really slid to begin with, but that was another great moment.
He feels like they marked him wrong. Did you hear that from Riley Leonard? He's like, every time I slide, they take away 3 extra yards, so I'm not going to slide anymore. I was like, all right, good for you, man. He's also a linebacker. So
he's as big, if not bigger, as the guys hitting him. But what was the thing that stood out to you the most? Was it just his demeanor, the way he handled going down 2 touchdowns in that environment, or was there something about his play that you're like, whoa, all right, this guy can really be as good as we think he could be?
No, it was his demeanor because I don't think they gave him a chance for his play to look like that. I give credit to Miami. What were you at one point? We're down 21-7. How are you going to drop back with CJ Carr, a line that's struggling? All of a sudden, you have a backup lineman coming in. Are you really going to step back there, start reading out 3 deep routes, and you don't think the defensive line's getting there? So I don't know if that part wasn't on Denbrock or the play calling, but I just felt like it was 21-7, and you could have told me they're about to get run out of this place with a CJ Carr interception touchdown and a CJ Carr fumbled sack. I just thought it was his demeanor and toughness coming back. He just looked like a different person as they were coming back, as he looked pissed, almost like, this is ridiculous. So I think his toughness and demeanor going forward is the biggest takeaway for me there.
Tim and I still have plenty more to discuss, including what needs to change on offense and on defense in order for the Irish to beat Texas A&M. But first, I want to tell you about DoorDash. It's almost the weekend, so it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For Notre Dame, it's got to be CJ Carr. He delivered in a big way during the fourth quarter. We all remember his no-look touchdown pass to Micah Gilbert for his first career touchdown pass, but how about when he stayed cool, calm, and collected and led the Irish down and ultimately ran it in himself to tie the game? When the pressure was on, he came through. No hesitation, no delay. And just like CJ Carr delivered for Notre Dame, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday and keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. So how do you think Freeman and Denbrock will balance developing him and leaning into his downfield passing ability, coming off that game where we all agree they were throwing it horizontally way too much, but they also still have to protect him, especially going up against a Mike Elko defense?
Yeah, that's a tough task in week 2. Just a much better mixture of horizontal and vertical. You can loosen things up quickly vertical as well. And as I said, you don't have to read out three reads on a vertical. You could have CJ Carr with 2 reads on a vertical route and also the dump off pass that he has to have available to him. I still think they're going to come out and pass to set up the run because I just feel like their offensive line might have to do that right now. It would be really interesting to me if they just decide to line up with Jeremiah Love and hammer him 3 times in a row, get a first down. Jadarian Price comes on the field and hammer him 3 times in a row. Do you think they would get 23 yards if they did that against Texas A&M the way the line's blocking? Because that would be a telltale for what Notre Dame thinks about their offensive line.
I wouldn't be surprised. I can assure you that the fans in the crowd would really love that. There'd probably be some loud cheers, like what's it called when it's the fake cheer or more of a jeer anyway. But I think the fans love it. I do think they're going to overcorrect a little bit going into that game, and I wonder how much RPO they're going to call as opposed to just straight up design runs, because I really do think there's something to the idea of you got to give your offensive line, even if they're struggling, an opportunity to go forward and not even think about the pass. Just really try to dominate the guy in front of you. And it doesn't seem like a lot of the run calls that were happening in the Miami game allowed them to do that.
I completely agree, but I want to ask, we're not going to get Denbrock because we just had him, right? The media is going to get different coaches throughout the year now, so I'm hoping it's Sider. I don't think it'll be Rudolph. But if it's Sider or Rudolph, I want to ask him, are we simplifying this from past football? Like, if you're a zone read team and you're an RPO team, can you make this about 4 quarters of Pat Coogan saying, can you really just go? Is that something you have in your arsenal? Because I would like to think so. If you're an offensive and defensive line driven program, I would think you would have had practice segments dedicated to, all right, we need 3 yards on 3 consecutive plays, and they are putting 8 in the box. Let's go. And I'd like to see if they have that. But those are the guys to ask. I'll ask whichever offensive coach comes out. But it would be great to ask Joe Rudolph that.
You know, Pat Coogan's been coming up a lot in the last few days. A lot of people have been saying, like, oh, like, this is why you got to do everything to keep Pat Coogan and Rocco Spindler. And maybe I have this completely wrong, but I never got the sense that, like, Notre Dame ran them out of town. I think they just looked at the situation like, okay, Craig is coming back. That's Pat Coogan's spot at center, or at least it was last year. Billy Strauss should be healthy, so left guard is blocked. And it seemed like at that point they had already pretty much opened themselves up to the idea of moving Jagasaw right guard which is where Rocco Spindler played. So yeah, don't get me wrong. I would love for Notre Dame to have those guys in this moment, but it wasn't like they were like, oh, we don't need him. I don't know. Maybe it was different, but that's kind of how I understood it.
I think there's about 2.5 to 2.8 million wrapped up in the offensive linemen that they have, including Jagasa. And what are you doing? What are you going to do with Pendleton left? But what are you going to do with Coogan and Spindler in that situation? And they were honest, like Pat Coogan, great job. You're going to have to compete with Ashton Craig, who beat you out before for a starting center position. That's hard for Pat Coogan to do. Rocco Spindler, we replaced you twice. We love Charles Jagusa is the guard that replaced you. You have to compete with him. Remember, it's not compete with Gerby Lambert and Sullivan Absher. It was compete with Jagusa. I just think they had to go, and they made the right choice for their professional future. So you can't pay everyone, man. That's just, people hate it when I say that, but that's what's going on. You're going to pay eight offensive linemen high salaries? Because right now they have 6 that they have to do that for.
It's not reasonable. When do you think Jagasaw is going to come back? Because I'm sure that after that game, it's funny that a couple weeks ago we were like, what happens when Jagasaw comes back? Does he even have a spot to, oh my God, please get back here tomorrow?
Yeah, the last I heard on Jagasaw, I'd said it in August. There was more of a setback with that going back in when his wound opened up. Then obviously Notre Dame's going to let on. There's no reason to say that if you're Marcus Freeman. But the original thought was he could actually, if he pushed it, play this week or next week, A&M. Then they thought, well, that's pushing it and really pushing it. So end of September is the way to go there. Now I think your earliest is end of September, early October, to be honest. If you have a little bit of a setback. Also, he has to come back and be able to battle. He can't just come back and say, I'm fine. When he came back, his first week back for the playoffs was like the SEC championship week. And then he played against Penn State. That's a full month.
Yeah, he did not come in during the Indiana game when Rocco first went down. So he clearly wasn't ready for that one, but he was, I think, 10 days later when they played?
He was ready for Georgia. He didn't need to be there for Georgia, but they needed him for Penn State. He was listed on the 2 deep, so he was going to be available for Georgia for sure. I think it was a little bit of a fake listing for IU possibly, but they had said he could play. But no, I think he has good healing powers, obviously. I just don't think it's that easy to run in and say, let's say he's ready for Arkansas. Is that the best situation if he's not 100%? Like he's 100% healthy, he's 100% able to hold up against an SEC defensive line for 70 snaps.
Yeah. At this point, I don't really know what to do with injuries because the fact that Jordan Botelho played 12 snaps, 2 months removed from a torn pec and less than a year removed from a very serious knee injury, that broke my brain, man. I don't know how he was out there.
I thought he had a pressure on Traore Sack too. I'm not sure if Pro Football Focus gave it to him. They give out pressures like it's a tip in Vegas, but it's I thought Botelho had a pressure. I couldn't believe it that he was involved in that.
He was in every 3rd and long package.
Yeah, that's tremendous effort by him to come back because we were thinking at some point someone said late October when he was injured. That's crazy.
Medical marvel that Jordan Botelho, his Notre Dame career continues to become more and more interesting. But as we move on from this Miami game, what is one thing on offense that you are very confident is going to change between now and A&M?
I think it'll be more vertical. There's going to be more vertical passing attack. We rip on the horizontal because it was so much of it, but that's great for Faison. But you're throwing those bubble screens to Malachi Fields. That's the best usage of him. You got to get Fields and Greathouse and Pauling involved in mid-range and one-on-one situations because Carr can throw it. As long as you can protect it, those guys have to be more involved. So I think it's going more vertical. I don't think Mike Denbrock wants to play ticky-tack
whatever
offense.
That was.
Yeah, whatever it is. Patty cake on the outside. So I don't think that's his true style.
Okay, same question, but for the defense.
Oh, the defense is going to play better all around. You're going to see a better impact from the I think there could be less rotation.
I'd like to see less rotation. You went out and you got Devontae Smith from Alabama, and he was nowhere to be found. I thought he was hurt. I was with Pete Sampson. I was like, is he hurt? Did someone see? Is he eating a popsicle on the sideline too? What's going on here? Yeah,
I was surprised by that. I was surprised he had more snaps than Hobbs when I looked at the snaps today. Did every snap counts? But it is probably true, and we talked about this a little. They must like Carson Hobbs in coverage, which makes sense more than Devontae Smith. And Miami's got the receivers to stress you in the slot too. But you want Devontae Smith to be in there. And if he can't be, on base downs, is Jaden Osbury again an option out there? Because Jaden Osbury and Kingston Viliamuasa, in case his mom is listening, I didn't say KVA, they were the best linebackers on the field. I know Drake Bowen's going to be again, but Osbury played very well. You got to get him out there, and you have to have Kingston Viliamuasa out there. He's a fantastic player. And I know it's not 60 snaps, but it's a maddening rotation sometimes, but it's not Chris Ash. Remember, it was Max Bulla that did it perfectly last year. So just because we're mad for one game that this happened, kudos all offseason to Max Bulla for rotating 5 linebackers so expertly. They kept rotating. It is the position coach's job to rotate. I wonder if on the back line they rotate less.
I wouldn't be surprised. And again, when you think about the weather and the circumstances in that game, like, it was a lot. And Miami was probably, their receivers were going downfield a little bit more. I mean, to me, I don't know how you look at Marcel Reed, if you've had a chance to watch too much of him. I mean, obviously last year, but like, he kind of reminds me of Brandon Wimbush, an elite runner, but very inaccurate. He did have a pretty good game passing the ball against UTSA, but that's also UTSA. So I wouldn't be surprised if Notre Dame had another conservative game plan on defense and kind of force Marcel Reed to throw the ball.
Yeah, because staying in your rush lanes becomes more important, really, than...
Yeah, you miss one, and he's gone.
Yeah, you got to stay in your rush lanes, but you still got to put some pressure, because you pressure him, he's going to turn it over, too. There is a little catch-22 there, but, boy, you really got to maintain your rush lanes against him. That's the worst feeling when there's more than one escape a half. When it should never be one on third down, but when you get one escape a half on 2nd and 10 and he goes for 16 yards because you blew a rush lane, that's a tough feeling.
How much is riding on that game?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, I know if you're a coach, and you lose the game, you're fine. You refocus, you get your team refocused. You can certainly win out because you're going to improve. Your Notre Dame's a really good team. They're going to improve. But in terms of the national consciousness, we said this on our podcast, you're out of it until Thanksgiving Saturday. And you're only in at Thanksgiving Saturday if you win 10 straight and look like they did last year, the way they won 10 straight too. Like, you're going out and blowing the doors off of Arkansas and USC and Boise State. And I still don't think they barely fell. Like, Notre Dame has such a national support that they didn't used to have. They're the top 9 still. And they look like crap. I mean, they lost by 3 to a top 10 team. And that's all people look at. And that's great. You got to beat A&M by 1, not lose to A&M by 1. It doesn't matter how you beat A&M. Just beat A&M. You'll still be number 8, whatever. And then you go on a roll.
If they won 6-3, I literally would not care. I would not care. Just get out of that game alive, because I do think it's going to be a heavyweight fight. Like, are you worried at all about Mike Elko getting his 3rd crack at Notre Dame after losing 2 just heartbreakers, especially against a quarterback who's making a 2nd start?
One of my preseason predictions is that this is the lowest scoring game of the season. So the team that wins is going to have the lowest winning point total of the season. Now, I would definitely stand by that, because first of all, Notre Dame's offense will get better, but this has all the makings of Iraq. If you could have a 7-7 first quarter, and you could be looking there in the middle of the third and it's 10-7, because that's the type of defense these defenses are going to settle in this game.
What is the most important matchup you're going to be watching in that game?
I mean, Notre Dame's offensive line versus A&M's defensive line. I have faith that Notre Dame's defense will handle A&M's very good offensive line better than it handled Miami's running game. Remember, it was the weirdest poor rush defense or average rush defense for a team that limited someone to 119 yards and 3.3 yards per carry. But Tyler, a 56% rush efficiency is more important than the total yards and all that. But look, if you tell me A&M runs for 119 yards and 3.3 yards per carry, I don't think it'll be a 56% rush efficiency again. So I think the Notre Dame defense will simply play better all around. I think they're going to have their footing much better than they had. And I don't mean that literally. I think they were just Chris Ash in his first game. Why would he not be better in his second game? Al Golden, first and second game weren't his best games of all.
I was going to say.
Okay, let's go here. I mean, it takes a little bit.
It does. And, it is going to be a tense 3.5 hours inside Notre Dame Stadium next Saturday. But you got to give credit to Marcus Freeman and his team. One team that they're really good at is playing with their backs against the wall. And they have put their backs against the wall after the first game of the season. first game after Labor Day, and this is already the situation they're in. But Tim, this has been great. I always appreciate your time and your insight. Be sure to check out his work over at Irish Illustrated. And hopefully I'll see you in South Bend next weekend. I will be there. So hopefully I'll run into you. Thanks again for taking the time, man.
Oh, for sure. Thanks for having me on. I always enjoy it.
All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Irish. Thanks as always for making this your first watch or listen of the day. If you enjoyed the show, remember, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe to the podcast, like the video, rate and review the pod. It really helps us grow. And don't forget, this is your last call to submit mailbag questions for tomorrow's Friday mailbag. You can drop them in the YouTube comments or send them to me on X at Locked On Irish or on Instagram at Locked On Irish Pod. And for your second watch or listen, make sure to tune in to College Football Kickoff today only on Fire TV. I'll see you Friday.